Hey everyone, Dr. Frunkey here, and welcome back to my knife operating room. In front of us is the Carter Trinity by the Ontario Knife Company. This will be our patient today. We're going to be doing a little takedown and maintenance on this guy, and we're going to see what's inside. One of the reasons that I was so excited about this knife in principle was because of this knife. This is the BBM. This was designed by Robert Carter. The original BBM is a custom knife that Rob Carter actually makes, but this one was made by Nick Chuprin. This is sort of, I guess you could call it a mid-tech. It's really a custom knife. But in any case, it was made with Nitro V steel, ball bearings, and a titanium frame lock. I was very excited to see that Ontario was going to introduce a budget version. This one cost $60. That one costs upwards of $600. And so I was excited to see them coming in with a budget model. This one is also a titanium frame lock. I must have misspoke in my initial unboxing video. I thought it was steel. It is in fact titanium with a steel insert, and we're going to see that in a minute. It has AUS 8 steel, and it runs on washers. And so I wanted to get inside and see what this knife looked like on the inside so I could really compare the two. You're going to need your tools out in front of you here and your lubrication of choice. I like to use 10-weight nano oil. I'm going to move that off the screen for a moment. You're going to need a T8 and a T6 Torx bit. I will show this off for a second. This is the Brian Fellholter screwdriver right here in all copper. I got this off of his website. They also sell these on a few different websites. It's a little bit expensive compared to some of the other drivers that are out there, but I think it's really well made. Runs on ball bearings. It's got this copper ball. It's pretty neat, and it comes included with these power drivers, so I really appreciated that. Anyways, let's get into the knife here. So there was a small amount of Loctite the first time I did this. It was very easy to overcome. The pivot is a T8. You switch over and put in your T6s. And in just 3 screws, you're going to have this knife completely disassembled. So that's going to come off, disengage the lock, and this just pops right off. So what you're going to see, this is a G10 handle scale right here. Nothing fancy on the inside. The stop pin is stuck in there right now. There is no track built in there. Going to go ahead and show you there is a phosphor bronze washer. So the first time I opened this, I'm like, oh great, phosphor bronze washers. And then you open it up and what? Wait, hold on. Hold on a second. Is this actually? Yes. And there you go. You saw it fall. This has Teflon washers running against phosphor bronze washers, which is a bit of an unusual setup. But I guess I understand it from a scientific standpoint. As I've explained in some other videos, Teflon actually has a lower coefficient of drag than phosphor bronze when it's against steel. And so putting a Teflon washer there and having that roll against phosphor bronze instead of titanium and G10, from an engineering standpoint, I get it. From a pivot strength and duration standpoint, I'm not sure I'm a huge fan. These are wafer thin little washers of Teflon. Let me show you up close. Just incredibly, just paper thin. And so if you're not careful, and you could really mess your knife up. One of the problems that I have with Teflon washers is that if you over tighten a knife, you can in fact shred them if you're not careful. Take a look at the inside of the blade here. Standard, there's your detent ball track right there. Nothing really too fancy here. Pretty simple, very nicely done, you know, solid. Here's the titanium side. There is a steel lock bar insert and a steel detent ball. You'll notice that the pivot area is D'd. And in fact, I'll start putting this knife back together. What you'll notice is that the pivot itself is actually also D'd. And so at least that's the word I use for it. I don't know if anyone else, what the real term for that is. Certainly there's a design term for this D'd nature right here. Anyways, it's nice that it doesn't freely rotate. And so I guess it doesn't really matter which one of these I put on which place. I've got plenty of lube on here, but I'll just show you. Just drop the washers back on. I apply just a drop of lube. The thing about washers is that you need even less lube than you do with ball bearings, because with ball bearings you need to get lube across the surface of all the ball bearings and the cage. Here you really only need to put a small amount because the surface area, it just flattens out once you smash it against the washer. Throw a little bit on the pivot. I know I over oil all my things, but it's totally fine. This whatever. That's just my style. So I'm going to put the blade back on there. Put a little tiny bit more lube. Yeah, way too much lube. Just kind of globs up sometimes. See, this is another reason I don't like the Teflon washers. If you're not super careful while putting it together, you could theoretically shred it. So there we go. Getting this back together. Very simple construction here. So I really don't think people need to be afraid of taking their knives apart. I am certainly happy that this knife is very simple to take apart and maintain. That is a thing. Some knives are very difficult to maintain. I'll just give a reference to the Spyderco Manix while I'm just talking right here. I actually ended up selling mine. A big reason was because I didn't have any fun disassembling the knife. I actually kind of enjoy taking knives apart and seeing what's going on the inside. I've kind of enjoyed doing that ever since I was a kid. I suppose that's why I enjoy surgery as a career. But, you know, it's a big disappointment when you can't service your knife easily. This knife does service quite easily. Now comes a problem, okay? This is where the knife, I think, is going to fail for me. So as you can see, I've tightened it down. It's very tight. The knife slightly favors the lock side. Slightly favors the lock side, and it's far too tight. There's absolutely no way that I can launch this knife in its current configuration. I cannot even get it to open. So what you'll notice, you just go ahead and put your T8 back in. I don't want to scrape this all up. So here we go. Put your T8 back in there, loosen it, and there it pops right back on center. Now you can see that it's on center, okay? So that means it's a little bit looser than it was. Do we have action? There it goes. Now, okay. So now we've got the detent and the action tuned to where it's centered and it pops out. Now, the main problem that I have here is that there is a slight amount of side-to-side blade play at this point. This is, you know, it's there. If you had it in your hand, you could feel it. It's very slight. While that's not necessarily a deal breaker, what that indicates to me is that this knife will never be tuned properly. I've tried this a dozen times now, at least, and I have a lot of experience tuning knives. It's pretty much impossible to not have a little bit of blade play. There's still a hair of blade play, and then have the action be good enough to flick it out. There you go. See the action? It's a little bit tighter now, and it's not launching consistently. So I'll keep trying to tune this. And, you know, I suppose if you found that magical balance point, you could throw in some thread locker and just keep it there. But I think that I'm a little bit frustrated with those tolerances, that there is blade wiggle at the point that you finally get the detent light enough. See, the detent varies so much based on the tension of the pivot. So if I just loosen it a hair, still. Anyways, you can see the frustration here. This is not the BBM. The BBM just pops apart and goes right back together and works just perfectly each and every time. I should probably make a video on that. Tell me what you guys think of this knife down below. Tell me what you think of the construction of this knife, from the steel to the way that the frame lock is put together to the washers. Let's talk about this knife. And maybe what your suggestions might be to the Ontario Knife Company for improvements. I know I certainly have some recommendations, but thank you guys for watching. Go ahead and click like and subscribe to my YouTube channel here. Head over to Instagram and check me out at Dr. Frunkey. Check out the Ontario Knife Company and the knives they have to offer. Certainly check out Rob Carter and his custom knives and some of the other knives that he's made. But thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you on the next knife surgery video. And as always, guys, take care.